Okay, before any of you skip this video, just hear me out first. Because today we're talking about something that has absolutely blown up K-pop timelines over the past few days. And this isn't just another story about an idol showing up to a friend's concert. This is about a friendship that has been quietly running for years, about an idol from a rival group who finally spoke honestly about his best friend in public, and about one performance at Goyang Stadium that made everyone, including people inside the industry itself, completely unable to stop talking. We start from the beginning, and trust me, you need all the context to truly feel just how big this is. April 9th, 2026. Goyang Stadium. BTS officially opened their Arirang World Tour. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. That concert was one of the biggest moments in modern K-pop history. This wasn't just a concert. This was a reunion moment that millions of ARMY had been waiting for almost 4 years. All 7 members, complete, returning to the stage after each of them completed their mandatory military service. RM, Jin, Suga, jhobe, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, all 7 back, all 7 present, all 7 ready to prove that time hadn't weakened them in the slightest. And that first night, rain. Goyang Stadium's open roof left thousands of audience members soaking wet. But not a single person left. Not one. Because up on that stage, BTS was doing something extraordinary. They opened with Body to Body, the song that embeds the traditional folk melody Arirang within it, and when the entire stadium sang Arirang together in the rain, it was no longer just a concert. It became something far bigger. Something that felt like a piece of history. But among everything that happened that night, and the 2 nights that followed, April 11th and 12th, one person kept becoming the center of attention. One name that kept coming up on Twitter, in fan accounts, in concert reviews, everywhere. And that name was Park Jimin. Now, for those of you who've been following BTS for a long time, you know Jimin is no stranger to extraordinary stage performances. But what he did at Goyang left even veteran fans completely speechless. One Korean media outlet reported that despite the heavy rain from the very beginning, Jimin filled the stage with a performance that didn't spare a single part of his body. His long blonde hair, which had already drawn attention during the Gwangwaman performance back in March, created an atmosphere that was even more mysterious, soaked by the rain. Some described the wet hair look combined with black leather styling as creating a fantasy mood that gave birth to a whole new nickname, Northern Grand Duke. And it wasn't just his appearance. Jimin's vocals, which freely moved from low emotional tones to explosive high notes, drew audible gasps from the live audience that, according to many people present, simply couldn't be captured on camera. Netizens exploded. Jimin fan accounts went into overdrive. But what was most interesting wasn't just the ARMY reaction. What was most interesting was who outside the BTS community was also speaking up. And this is where our story actually begins. Because you all know, or you're about to know, that Jimin isn't only loved within the ARMY community. Inside the K-pop industry, Park Jimin is known as one of the most genuinely beloved artists among fellow idols. He has a very well-known friendship circle. And at the center of that friendship circle stands a name that has long stood beside him, Kim Jong-in. Stage name? Kai, main dancer of EXO, one of the most iconic idols this industry has ever produced. The friendship between Kai and Jimin isn't new. This has been going on for years, and if you've been around K-pop long enough, you already know the story. They're part of a friend group known as the Padding Friends or Padding Squad, a name born from their habit of going out together wearing padding jackets. The members include SHINee's Taemin, Ha Sungwoon, Timoteo from Hot Shot, and of course Kai and Jimin. How they even met was actually explained by Ha Sungwoon himself in an interview. Sungwoon explained that everything started with Timoteo, who had been a trainee at SM Entertainment for a long time and grew close with Taemin and Kai. Then the circle expanded, and it was Sungwoon who introduced Jimin into the group after meeting Jimin through jhobe, who had already been his friend since their trainee days. And the moment Jimin entered that circle, instant click. Sungwoon even said they got along so well that the 7 of them would meet up regularly. this is a friendship that crosses agencies, crosses fandoms, crosses commercial rivalries. And in an industry that is genuinely very competitive, where groups from different agencies are often treated as if they're battling each other, a friendship like this is real, not marketing content. You can't fake that kind of dynamic for years on end. And Kai has repeatedly shown just how much he values the people in that circle. When Taemin released his solo album, Want, a few years back, it was Taemin himself who shared in a press interview that Kai listened to the album and immediately told him it was far better than the demo. Not hollow praise, specific praise. The kind that feels like it came from someone who actually listened carefully. And Jimin? Taemin said Jimin always tells him, "You really seem to know something," a warm and genuine compliment for someone who consistently makes the right artistic decisions. This is a group that genuinely supports each other. And that's what makes everything that happened after Goyang so meaningful. After BTS wrapped up 3 consecutive nights at Goyang, the response from within the industry came from all directions. Many praised the concert as a whole. Many talked about BTS's return as a historic moment for K-pop. But if you were closely watching the K-pop timeline, you would have noticed that one theme kept repeating itself. People who know this world from the inside, who understand its standards and difficulties, were talking about Jimin in an unusual way. Because what Jimin did at Goyang wasn't just performing well. It was something deeper than that. He had just come out of mandatory military service. He had just completed almost 4 years of hiatus as part of BTS. And on top of all that, he was carrying enormous pressure because in the months leading up to this, Jimin's name had been attached to various controversies and accusations circulating online. Everything from lip-sync allegations to various other dramas that, honestly, most were never proven but still weighed heavily. And in the middle of all that pressure, Jimin stepped onto the stage at Goyang and delivered a performance that shut everyone's mouths. Not because he had to prove something, but because that's what he does. It's always what he does. Off-Pop compiled various responses from Korean netizens after the concert wrapped, and the names that came up most frequently were Jimin and V being mentioned together as the 2 people who made audiences feel something again. One comment that spread widely essentially said because of Jimin and V they were moved, made a purchase, and came back, that they got their passion back. Another said Jimin's Spring Day dance is still art, and the 95 liners are insanely lovable to the point of feeling warm inside. These aren't compliments from strangers. These are from fans who may have drifted, who may have had doubts, who came back and watched Jimin on that stage and couldn't pretend they weren't moved. And then, beyond all the fan responses, there was another layer that made all of this even more complex and even more significant. We go back to Kai, because this is where the quieter but more meaningful things happen. In the K-pop world, idols very rarely openly praise fellow idols from other groups in direct and specific ways in public spaces. There's an unwritten rule that you maintain certain boundaries. You don't want to look like you're marketing yourself through someone else's name. You don't want your fandom and their fandom to clash. So most of the genuine cross-group interaction happens quietly behind the scenes between friends who understand each other's situations. But Kai is someone who has repeatedly proven that he doesn't care much about those unwritten rules when it comes to the people he genuinely cares about. He has long been known as someone who is authentic in the way he engages with the world. And his friendship with Jimin is one of the clearest examples of how an idol can authentically nurture relationships outside their own group. Now let's step back a little and look at the bigger picture. BTS is back. And this comeback isn't just returning after a break. This is a resurgence that proves some things are genuinely worth waiting for. The Arirang album spent its first 2 weeks at the top of the Billboard 200. The single Swim hit #1 on the Hot 100. Their world tour stretches across more than 85 dates in 34 cities across 23 countries. This is BTS operating at the absolute highest level they've ever been. And the nights at Goyang, with the rain on the first night, with the star-studded audiences from across the entire industry on the nights that followed, with Jimin on that stage making people forget the world had any other problems, were the loudest possible opening statement from a tour that will run through 2027. But behind all that grandeur, there's something smaller and warmer that we need to talk about. And it's about friendships that endure, about people who aren't bound together by the same group or the same agency or the same fandom, but who are bound together by a mutual respect and an affection that grew quietly far from the spotlight. Kai and Jimin are the example of that. In an industry that often defines relationships based on commercial interests, where friendships in front of cameras don't always reflect genuine friendships in real life, Kai and Jimin have repeatedly proven that what exists between them is real. They show up for each other. They speak honestly about each other's work. They've never used that friendship as content, and that's exactly what makes it feel so precious every time it surfaces. And in the context of Goyang, in the context of everything Jimin carried before stepping onto that stage, and everything he gave once he was on it, words from Kai, from a fellow dancer who understands better than almost anyone what it means to do what Jimin does, carry a resonance that can't be measured in view counts or trending topics. This is about the moment when someone you admire, whose work you've watched and respected for years, looks at you and says, "I see you. I know how hard you worked, and you did something extraordinary." Let's talk about Kai for a moment as well, because I think some people might underestimate what he represents in this conversation. Kim Jong-un, known as Kai, debuted with EXO in 2012 under SM Entertainment. He is the main dancer of EXO, widely considered one of the best dancers the Korean music industry has ever produced. His stage presence is the kind that makes other professional dancers stop and pay attention. He carries an intensity on stage that feels almost theatrical, a quality that has earned him respect not just from fans, but from choreographers, directors, and fellow artists who know exactly what goes into building that kind of performance. He has also carved out a significant solo career, exploring fashion and art in ways that push beyond the typical idol framework. And he completed his own mandatory military service, which means he understands firsthand what it means to step away from performing for an extended period and then come back and have to rediscover your body and your voice and your stage presence. When Kai talks about performance, when he speaks about what it means to truly deliver on stage, he speaks from a place of deep personal knowledge. He's not a fan observing from the outside. He's a peer speaking from the inside. And Jimin, on that rainy night at Goyang, gave all of them in that inner circle something to speak about. There's also something worth saying about what Jimin has gone through in the lead up to this tour, because I think it's impossible to fully appreciate what he delivered at Goyang without understanding the weight he was carrying. The lip sync controversy that circulated online before and after the first concert night was particularly vicious. Fans from outside the BTS community were posting clips, making accusations, building narratives. And through all of it, Jimin didn't respond publicly. He didn't defend himself on social media. He just kept working. And then he showed up at Goyang and gave people his everything. That is a specific kind of strength. The kind that doesn't shout, but doesn't need to. The kind that lets the work be the answer. And when the people within the industry, the ones who've built their own careers doing exactly that, who've faced their own versions of public pressure and chosen the same path of letting their work speak, when they see someone else do it, they recognize it immediately. That recognition is what binds the padding squad. That shared understanding of what this industry demands, what it takes, and what it costs. That's the foundation of the friendship between Kai and Jimin that has lasted across years, across different career chapters, across everything. The 3 nights at Goyang have wrapped up now. BTS moves on to Tokyo, and then the rest of the world. The Arirang World Tour has only just begun. But what those nights in Goyang left behind isn't just viral clips and trending hashtags and record-breaking numbers. What they left behind was a reminder that in the middle of all the noise, the controversies, the fan wars, the online drama, there are real human beings behind these names. People who pour everything into their craft and show up even when it's hard. People who have friends who see them clearly and care about them genuinely. Jimin at Goyang was one of the most talked about performances of the entire year so far. And the conversation that it sparked, not just among fans, but among the people inside the industry who know what they're looking at, is going to continue long after the rain that soaked that first night has dried. Some things you just can't manufacture. You can't produce it. You can't schedule it. Jimin just showed up on that stage and gave everything, and people who know this world from the inside responded the way people always respond when they see something real. So here's to Park Jimin, who carried 1,000 things onto that stage and still made it look like pure joy. Here's to the friends in his corner who have never needed a camera rolling to show up for him. Here's to Kai, who has long understood that true respect between artists doesn't need to be announced, it just needs to be felt. And here's to the Padding Squad, who have quietly remained one of the most beautiful cross-group friendships this industry has ever seen. If you made it to the end of this video, I genuinely appreciate you staying with me through all of it. This story had layers, and I wanted to do it full justice. Drop a comment below. Were you following the Goyang concert reactions as they unfolded? And what hits you harder, the performance itself or the friendships behind the scenes that make moments like this mean even more? Subscribe if you haven't already, because this is exactly the kind of storytelling we love to dig into here. I'll see you in the next one.